A $10 million outreach program targeting African American, Latino, and younger voters. A shorter primary season, fewer debates, and an earlier convention. More emphasis on early voting, an aspect of voter turnout where Democrats have typically fared much better. And the report also suggests using more Hollywood celebrities to help change perceptions. And it also plans to rip a page from the Obama playbook by launching a complete revamp of digital technology as well. NBC senior political editor Mark Murray is here with more on what this means and what this does not mean necessarily. Mark, first of all, what can we glean from this report about the direction that Priebus now wants to take the GOP?
Well, this is about a party trying to find its bearing after losing 2 straight presidential elections and not winning the popular vote in 5 out of the past 6 elections. And one of the guideposts that Priebus in the report lays out is to say, look, let's follow the pattern that Republican governors across the country have been able to do. These governors are having a lot of success. There are 30 of them across the country. If we follow their path and not the federal one, that is a better path to success. However, the one point is that a lot of those Republican governors were all elected in 2009 and 2010 at a time when the unemployment rate was about 10%. As since it's gone down, the question is whether you could still have that same type of success.
In First Read today, you talk about the GOP's redistricting efforts. The National Journal's Charlie Koch asking, among other things, by drawing themselves into safe lily-white strongholds, have Republicans inadvertently boxed themselves into an alternate universe that bears a little resemblance to the rest of the country? How does redistricting, how does it actually hurt the GOP's ability to reach minority voters?
Well, first of all, redistricting helped the Republicans in the short term by allowing them to hold on to the House in 2012, despite actually losing the popular House vote across the country. But what it did was put more whites into white districts and put minorities into Democratic districts, all in an effort to protect Republican incumbents. And as Charlie Cook kind of lays out there, as Reince Priebus says, look, we need to have a better effort to reach out to Latinos, to African Americans. But when you have members of Congress, Republicans who are just representing white Republicans, it's very hard to speak to end up really courting with minority voters.
Essentially saying, how can you reach out and talk to some folks if none of them live near you?
Precisely.
Really quickly, before I let you go, a lot of these issues, of course, played out over the weekend at CPAC and late last week as well. There was some disagreement over how much the GOP needs to change its message or the messengers in the wake of the election losses. What was your take on how close the party is coming to having a unified message?
Oh, Craig, it's still a long time away. I mean, we saw some Republicans who say everything is fine. That was kind of mentioned by Marco Rubio, that our ideas are fine, that idea is America, to folks like Rand Paul who said, look, we need to have a brand new political party, a new GOP. The thing is, this debate's going to be happening over the next couple of years, and we're not going to find out where the Republican Party is for a while. Democrats were just in this position after losing the 2004 election. They had very big debates, particularly over the Iraq War in 2005, 2006. Then everything seemed to be settled for and they were in a good position. We'll see where Republicans are come 2015 and 2016. Our
senior political editor, Mark Murray. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Fred.
Let's bring in the News Nation political panel. Nationally syndicated radio talk show host Michael Smerconish, who is also, of course, an MSNBC contributor, and Jonathan Collegio, Director of Communications for American Crossroads. Thanks, gentlemen, for being with me. Jonathan, let me start with you. This is what RNC Chair Reince Priebus said is a major challenge facing the GOP. Take a listen.
Focus groups described our party as narrow-minded, out of touch, and, quote, stuffy old men. The perception that we're the party of the rich, unfortunately, continues to grow. That's frustrating, because we care about every voter.
All right, what does this plan do, Jonathan? What does the plan do to change those perceptions, at least?
I think it's a very, very good start. It's a very good framework of what needs to be changed tactically among the party in order to get our message across better, to identify voters, to be able to find them where they are, and to be able to win elections through better tactics. I think that, you know, they talked a little bit about policy in this, but I think most of it was about changing the tactics, changing the way that we're communicating our message to voters. Because if we're not able to, I mean, the Obama campaign did an incredible job defining Mitt Romney, and that's where a lot of those focus group messaging came back from. We were the party of the rich. I mean, mean, that was basically 6 months of heavy advertising by the Democrats. So I think it's important to reposition ourselves, be able to talk to voters clearly about what we stand for.
So it sounds like what we're hearing is then that the message is fine for the most part. There are no major problems with the message. It's how we are reaching voters and how we are delivering that message. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. There are definitely things that we can do to talk about our policies better. There are ways that we can improve our message. He didn't talk so much about changing policies, and I thought that that's a clear point that needs to be made with regard to this. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of tactical changes that we need to make as a party and as a movement to be able to talk to people in a more clear way.
Save immigration, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Michael, one of the major recommendations from the report has to do with the primary process. The RNC wants to move toward a shorter primary season, fewer debates than the last cycle, and we've already seen some pushback on that front. Rick Santorum's chief advisor, John Brabender, saying in part, quote, "I am troubled by the possibility of a condensed primary process which undoubtedly gives an advantage to establishment-backed candidates and the wealthiest candidates as well." First of all, Michael, how's the RNC going to be able to enforce some of these things that they're talking about? And how much of a difference will it really make at the end of the day?
Well, I think it'll make a great difference, but I don't think the document, tactically speaking, goes far enough, because what the GOP needs to do is water down the fringe influence. The GOP needs to set up a primary process where Christine O'Donnell is not going to defeat Mike Castle in Delaware only to go on and lose the general election. Frankly, I think what the party should be doing is taking a long, hard look at open primaries, because, Craig, there has been an absolute exodus of independent-minded types from the GOP who are sitting out there and available to select more mainstream candidates if only they were allowed to vote in a primary process. The narrowing of the GOP is such now that whoever is most to the right has a distinct advantage in a primary, even if they could never win a general election. And this document doesn't correct that shortcoming.
Opening the primary process.
Yep, that's the solution.
Jonathan, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that the main thing that they're concerned about from the RNC is that we basically have a primary process that in 2012 lasted until the very end of August. So, and Mitt Romney effectively became the nominee at some point at the end of April, early May. So there was literally 3 months there. Romney was just getting savagely attacked by Obama and the Democrats, the Obama super PAC, and he was unable to respond because most of the money that he was raising could only be used after the primary. So I think they want to move that up because there really isn't any utility today in having the primary and having the convention so late.
Let's talk about this digital platform that the GOP wants to put in place for a second here. A guy named Rob Louie, he's the director of digital media at the Heritage Foundation. This is what he said to the Wall Street Journal. "I'm confident conservatives can close the digital gap, but we should not rely on the Republican Party to do it. We must invest in solutions that are going to build a movement that advances ideas rather than a political party." Jonathan, I read that as there already seems to be some friction over who's going to have access to and control of this new GOP treasure trove of data.
Well, this is also where the campaign laws play a very, very important part, because an outside group like American Crossroads can't coordinate with a candidate, so it doesn't make sense for a data project where you're going to be giving data out to candidates that can only coordinate with a party. It doesn't make sense for that to be in the outside group. I think the RNC has it right. It needs to be with the RNC. They're talking about sharing it and open sourcing it with other groups, with like-minded groups like the guy from Heritage. But I think it does have to be run from the party. I think that has more to do with campaign laws than maybe that person who was quoted thinks.
Michael, one of the most interesting things I thought to come out of this report is what appears to be an official endorsement of immigration reform. At least the report says in part, quote, "We are not a policy committee, but among the steps Republicans take in the Hispanic community and beyond, we must embrace and champion comprehensive immigration reform. If we do not, our party's appeal will continue to shrink to its core constituencies only." Is this another issue where the RNC establishment is going to be butting heads with some of their own rank and file?
Well, not if the rank and file read the totality of that document and understand the demographic shift that's underway in the country that the RNC is trying to adapt to and I mean, notice, Craig, that the document really was essentially silent with regard to same-sex relationships and a gay rights agenda. But on this issue, they acknowledge that it's a litmus test of sorts in the minds of Hispanics, and that if Republicans don't come to terms with this fact and get behind some kind of a universal stance on immigration, then they're not going to be able to win general elections. And I think that's probably a correct pronouncement.
Jonathan Collegio, Michael Smerconish, always good to see you. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Still ahead, Hillary Clinton comes out in support